Okay, so now that we have finished off with our chapter on implementation, so implementation and design, they together combine to give us what we known as development, right? The third phase of the software development activity is what we know as validation, right? So in validation, we basically talk of both verification and validation, and that's where software testing comes into the picture. Okay, so before we start off with the chapter, I will spend a few minutes on discussing two case studies to understand the significance or the importance of testing. Okay, so we will look at some case studies where software, when not properly tested and deployed in the operations environment, how they can cause havoc with the lives of the people. Okay, with what impacts it can have on society. Okay, so the first case study that I would discuss is the Therac series of radiation therapy. Okay, so these were devices which were used for giving patients who had tumors, for giving them radiation. So the idea was there were lenses which had to be used and controlled to focus and pinpoint the area of the tumor and decide the how much amount of radiation has to be given. So there was a proper device, and these devices were called the Therac. Okay, so there was a series of devices. Okay, now before Therac 25, all of these the configuration of the lenses and the controlling of the radiation, this was done using hardware controls. Okay, so what Therac 25 introduced was that replacing these hardware controls with software controls. Okay, now when the moment you try to control these hardware with some software, with some software based signals, you need to have an operating system. Okay, now the OS which was developed for Therac 25 was a custom OS which was purely dedicated for running software which would control the operation of these devices, these radiation devices, right? So what happened was that it was these software which were supposed to run on this custom OS and deliver the controlling functionalities, they were not properly tested against race conditions. So if you remember from your OS courses that there is something called race conditions which are very important when we try to observe the behavior of the OS when some critical data are being observed or processed and those kind of things. Okay, so these race conditions were not properly tested against these software which were supposed to control this Therac radiation devices. So what happened was that many people were exposed to very heavy radiation. In fact, there were reports of 3 people dying due to overexposure to radiation. So this is the worst possible impact that we can think of that can come out of a software. So a software behaving incorrectly not only results in financial losses to the society, but also results in the loss of human lives. If that is observed, that's the worst thing that can happen, or that's the worst possible consequence we can think of with a faulty software, right? The other case study is one which we have looked at previously when we discussed the idea of reusable software engineering in our initial chapter. So if you remember that video I showed you about the launch of the Ariane 5 rocket. Okay, so Ariane 5 was basically tested for the first time on June 4th 1996, and you saw how that around roughly 37 to 40 seconds after the launch, the rocket completely went off course, and it just exploded, right? The important thing I mentioned at that point of time is that later on in the testing chapter, when we come to software testing, we will analyze this case study and we'll try to understand what went wrong. Okay, so if at the broadest level I have to give you the reason why Ariane 5, the first launch of Ariane 5 failed, it was because of good software engineering practices. That's the irony. Okay, so good software engineering practices were followed. Particularly, they used the ideas of reusable software engineering. Okay, so reusable software engineering, we have also looked in the previous chapter, that software reuse is perhaps the most popularly used methodology when we are trying to implement something, right? So going back to that same question, build or buy. Okay, so reusable software engineering is something which is always encouraged because it allows you to get a working version of the software at a much shorter time span, right? So which software did they reuse? They reused the software which was running on Ariane 4. Okay, now Ariane 4 was a very successful rocket at that time. So it was regularly launching different payloads into the orbit, and there was no errors or anything observed in the Ariane 4 software. So what the system engineers decided was they would reuse this software as is on the Ariane 5 rocket launch system, right? Now the problem was that Ariane 4 was a slow rocket. It was slower than Ariane 5, and it carried less payload. Okay, so the satellite payload which Ariane 4 could carry was much less than that of Ariane 5. So Ariane 5 was a much larger rocket which had larger speeds and which would carry much heavier payloads. Okay, with these, what happened was that there is a type of sensor which is used in these rocket maneuvering, which is known as IRS. Okay, so IRS is basically it has some sensors which capture the the velocity, the direction, the wind speed, and those kind of things, and it keeps the rocket on track. Okay, now this IRS was capturing data which had certain values. Okay, so when you are talking of data, you have data types, right? You have data types where you will store this data, right? Ariane 4, because it was slower and because it had a lower payload, it was working with 16-bit signed integers. Okay, it was working with 16-bit signed integers, and they did not need to do a particular type of testing, a category of testing which is known as overflow exceptions. Okay, so this is a particular type of testing which is done to check when your variables are overflowing and how you are handling those exceptions. So overflow exceptions were not done for Ariane 4 because if you know the range of values which can the maximum value which can be stored in a 16-bit signed integer, it is basically 32 plus 32767. Okay, and they were sure that because it was slower and it had a less payload, these values would always be less than this. It could never, the horizontal velocity of the rocket could never be greater than 32767. Okay, so there was no need for them to waste time and energy and resources on doing these testing, overflow exceptions. Okay, however, much later, when they designed the software for Ariane 4, they were not aware that it would be reused a decade later in Ariane 5, right? And they were not aware that it would be reused as it is. So much later in Ariane 5, when they reused the software, they decided not to tamper with anything in that software because it was working absolutely fine. But what they did not know was that because Ariane 5 was much larger and it was a faster rocket with heavier payloads, its values were coming as in the range of 64-bit floating point numbers. Okay. Now, if you are trying to convert a 64-bit floating point number and store it in a 16-bit signed integer, there will be buffer overflow. So, the overflow exceptions that we are talking about, they basically check these kind of errors, these buffer overflow errors. They check if during the execution of the software there is any buffer overflow error or not. Okay. But because these overflow exceptions were totally skipped from they were not there in the test cases, when they were testing the software for Aryan 5, they used a simulator and they replicated only those test cases which were there for Aryan 4. And hence these overflow exception test cases were still missing for Aryan 5. And these buffer overflow errors were never detected. In the actual launch, when this happened, the IRS system, it had two computers. Okay, so there is a primary computer and there is a secondary or a backup computer. Okay, so this is the reason is that if there is any hardware fault, then the backup computer comes into action. Okay, but both of them were running the same software. Okay, and because they did not have the exception handling for this buffer overflows, what they did was that they basically shut themselves down. They shut down. Okay, this is the worst way in which shutdowns are the worst way in which you can handle an exception. So when a rocket is already in flight and there is an error, you cannot say let me reboot the system. Okay, so that's what they did. That's what Aryan 5 the IRS system did, and the engine stopped receiving signals, and hence it slowly, if you remember that video, slowly from that vertical position, it slowly started to go horizontal like this, and then after some time it went approximately 90 degree off course, and then it exploded. Okay, so testing, as you understand, is absolutely critical. I mean, this error that we are talking about over here, converting, so even we have done this so many times in our lab classes, right? We have declared an integer variable and we have tried to store a double type of data in that integer variable. So there was buffer overflow, severe truncation errors and those kind of things, right? It's a very nominal error, but just imagine the consequences. Okay, so the rocket exploded, the satellite payloads, they were destroyed, and it's a huge loss, right? So this is what we are trying to highlight. We are trying to highlight the fact that if we use software without properly testing them, then there is a very good probability that it might cause damage to your surrounding environment where it is being deployed, and it can also result in the loss of human lives, which is the worst possible outcome which we can expect from a malicious or malfunctioning software. Okay, so with these basic insights, we will look into the different topics of chapter 8. So chapter 8 of your textbook by Ian Somerville, this discusses different ideas of associated with system testing. So we have development testing, then we'll talk about test driven development. So we have mentioned this test driven development in chapter 3 when we were talking of agile, right? We have to understand the difference between development testing and test driven development. Okay, they're fundamentally different. And then we will talk of things like release testing and user testing or user acceptance testing. Okay, so all these ideas we will discuss and we'll understand as part of this chapter. Okay, so before we start off with development testing, we will look at what are the different strategies, what are the different schools of thought underlying the idea of system validation or verification. Okay, so when we do program testing, what is the overall motivation? Okay, this we have to understand first. So motivation of testing is to demonstrate that the program that you have written serves your purpose. It is delivering the functionalities that it is supposed to deliver. Okay, and not only that, but also to discover any defects or bugs which may be resident in that program or code. Okay, so there are two things. One is to understand whether it is delivering the functionalities that you need, and if it is doing so, you also need to look into a larger space of possible executions and identify if there are any path of execution which result in some erroneous behavior of the software or program that you have written. Okay, so when you are doing this kind of testing, what you are doing is basically you run your program, you execute your source code using some synthetic data which you are assuming will be generated by the system and for the system while it is in execution in real time in the operations environment. Okay, keep this in mind when we talk about executing a program. We are talking of kind of running the program in the development environment, not in the operations environment. The moment we talk of operations environment, we are talking of deployment. We are not talking of doing a dry run or a simulation of the code. Okay, and once you do this kind of a simulation run or a test run of your code, you have to check the results. Okay, so you have to check whether there are any errors. You have to check if there are any anomalous behavior observed from the code. You have to check if the if the information that you're gathering, the statistics of your code execution, whether they are satisfying the non-functional or quality attributes of your associated with your software requirements. So we will look at different ideologies like load testing, stress testing. Okay, these kind of things where if suddenly there is a large number of users who are hitting your server with requests, can your server handle that, or is your software capable enough to handle that kind of a situation, right? The most important thing is, with proper testing, with efficient designing of test cases, we can check the desired functionalities are being delivered or not. With proper designing of test cases, we can identify defects, but we cannot ensure the absence of bugs. Testing cannot tell you that these errors are not there. Okay, so the buffer overflow error will not happen. This is something which testing cannot tell you. Testing can reveal the presence of errors. So if there is a buffer overflow problem, that testing will, if you design your test cases properly, if your set of test cases is complete, so basically it has the test cases for all the features that you need to test, if it is complete, then if some of these features are not being delivered, those errors will be revealed. Okay, but just because your test cases, all of them are passing, it does not mean that your code is error free. Okay, so what you see on the right hand side, it's very interesting. Normally this is something which we have all experienced. When you test your own code, everything runs fine, right? When it goes to the quality Q&A team, they identify some warnings, some things which they report back to you. And when you finally show it to your project manager, things have gone haywire. Okay, and obviously when you go to your customer, things will never pass. Okay, so this is an analogy which we draw from our regular lives, right? So when we're doing the program testing, we have very specific goals that we would like to achieve. Okay, so what is the first goal? The first goal, as we said, is to demonstrate both to the your project manager, to your development team, that the project that we had started off with, we have actually met the requirements. Okay, so the software meets the requirements. This is the key idea. So when we are demonstrating that the software that we have built has actually met the requirements, we need to do this demonstration both within the development team, right? So when we are doing it within the development team, we call this verification, right? And when we are doing this demonstration to the customer, we call it validation, right? So both these demonstrations have to be done very carefully, right? So when we talk of software, we have mentioned this, that software can be of two types depending on who owns the specification of the software. So when we are talking of a custom software, we say that the specification is of the software is owned by that customer or the client who has approached you, right? And when we say that the test case, the set of test cases must be complete, we mean that there has to be at least one test for every requirement in the requirements document. Okay, so there was a requirement a contract which was signed between the customer and the development organization. That document, the requirement specification document had natural language specifications with tabular specifications and those kind of things. So for each such requirement, you must have a test case which verifies and validates that requirement. Okay. When we are talking of generic software, there is no customer or client involved. Here the development team itself is the owner of the specification. So the test cases must include tests for all the system features which you have incorporated in your software, and then how the combinations of these features are working, right? So if you're going for a product release, it should not be the case that your new version includes certain features which causes your previous version features to malfunction or to fail. Okay, so the combination has to be checked equally, with equal importance. That's the first purpose, to see if the software is meeting the requirements. The second is to identify errors in your software, right? So you have to be able to discover those sequences of execution, those paths of execution which we call the behavior, which result in some kind of ambiguous, incorrect or undesirable state which does not actually conform the specifications. Okay, something which does not justify your requirements which you have documented. Okay, so what we have to do is that we have to identify this. Why? Only when we identify this kind of a system behavior which is not desirable for the customer or the end users, we have to get rid of them. Okay, so we don't want system crashes happening. We don't want any kind of unwanted interactions with other software or other devices. Okay, we don't want incorrect computations or corruption of data. These kind of things we don't want. Okay, so we have to design our test cases to check for all these kind of possible system behaviors which are undesirable, right? Only then we can remove them from the roots, from your code. When you are testing your software, these two ideas are analogous. So when we are trying to check whether the software is meeting its requirements, we call it validation testing. Okay, so we want to demonstrate to the developer and the system customer that the software meets its requirements. Okay, so a successful test case in case of validation testing, this is important. A successful test case shows that the system operations are as intended. Okay, so I wanted this feature, the feature is there and it's working fine. This is a successful test case when we are doing validation testing. When we are doing defect testing, the purpose is to identify defects, errors, undesirable behavior, right? So here a successful test case is a test case that brings out certain flaws or bugs within your system or your software. Okay, so if I have a test case in defect testing which brings out a defect within my software, which is resident in my software, then it's a successful test case. Okay, if I design my test case in such a way that the defects which are there in my software, they are not brought out by the test cases, then those are unsuccessful test cases. Okay, so this is an idea which we have discussed many times in the past. We'll revisit it again. So verification versus validation. Verification asks the question that are we building the product right? So I have a specification document. This specification document consists of requirements. It consists of design, everything. Okay, so we have the specification document and we are building a product out of this, right? So this product does it conform to the specifications? Okay, does it do exactly what is documented in the specifications? Okay, this is important. So if you have your specification and if you have your product, they must comply with each other. Okay, so that's why we are saying the product is right. The product is right with what? With respect to the specification. In validation, we say, are we building the right product? So the product satisfies the specification, but the product does not meet the requirements of the customer or the client. Okay. So the product was built in the right way, but it was not the right product that got created. Okay. So the software should do what the user really needs. Okay. And the aim of verification validation is to demonstrate to your customer to establish that amount of confidence that the system fits the purpose. Okay, you have to establish confidence in your end users, in your clients and your customer that the system is what they need. Okay, so when we are trying to show this to your customer or client, and we are trying to build this confidence within them, there are different factors which we need to consider. Okay, so what is the purpose of this software? So if the software is very critical, how critical the software is to that organization, your level of confidence will depend on that. Okay, so if your software is very, very critical, then the customer is normally very cautious. They are not easily willing to gain that confidence that the software is fine. They'll always be apprehensive. They'll ask for more time. They'll test it. Okay, so they will ask for a certain time period. Okay, so like once you give it to them and you demonstrate that it passes all the validation tests, they'll say, okay, fine, you are demonstrating that it's working, but we need time to test it on our own. Okay, so the confidence does not come very easily if the software is very critical. Okay, it depends on the user expectations. Okay, so if the customer or the client has very low expectations, so they are like they don't even understand how the software can help their organization, so they don't have a very clear picture of what they want. So there it is very easy to establish confidence. You can build some product which is not architecturally sound, which is not a very good design, but still somehow delivers the functional features. The customer will be very satisfied. They'll easily have that confidence. The third important thing is the marketing environment. So you want to establish confidence, right? You can demonstrate to your customer or client that it is important to get the product ready for the market as early as possible, rather than invest a lot of time in finding defects. So let us roll it out. Let us not invest too much time on establishing this fit for purpose idea, and let's deploy the product in the market, and then the customers or the end users who are using the software, they will start providing feedback, and we'll get to know the defects from them. Why do we need to do the testing on our own and identify those defects? Okay, so this is an ideology which is followed more in the agile process of software development. Okay, particularly if you remember, I talked about DevOps, where we build increments and we deploy it in the operations environment. Okay, so those kind of things, testing is also done in DevOps before deployment, but still you cannot assure that your testing is it's complete, is 100% foolproof. Okay, so the last idea that we will discuss before we finish off today's chapter is the difference between inspections and testing. So Somerville talks of this school of thought, distinguishes between inspections and testing. So inspections are more static in nature, and testing is more dynamic in nature. Okay, there are other schools of thought where we talk about static analysis and dynamic analysis. Okay, which you see on the picture on the right hand side. So static analysis or software inspections are analogous in nature, and what they say is that we can do software inspections with the help of tools and other techniques and frameworks where we analyze the system in a static manner to identify defects and faults, but without running the code, without running the software. Okay, so there are techniques, there are ways in which we can identify, we can explore the different possible paths of execution of a software, and we can check for certain properties, for different errors and those kind of things. So what we are doing is we are doing a static analysis. Okay, in dynamic analysis or dynamic verification, we call that software testing, and here we particularly run the product, we run the software, we run the source code, and we check against specific inputs, those artificial data, those synthetic data with which we create the test cases. We check how the system behaves with that test data. Okay, so we observe the operational behavior of the system. So when we talk of operational behavior, we are talking of running the software. So run the code and observe the behavior. Okay, so when we talk of software inspections, testing is what we'll explore throughout the rest of the chapter. That's the name of the chapter. But inspections are more advanced concepts which are not taught in an introductory course. So just we'll look at a brief overview. So software inspections are basically where we look into the source code, how they are represented, and we try to discover anomalies and defects without running the source code. Okay, so particularly they do not require execution of the software, and they can be used before implementation. The most important thing is that inspections are not done only on the code. Okay, not only on code. This is the most important thing. Software inspections can be done and should be done at every phase of the software development lifecycle. Okay, so you have a requirement specification document, you should inspect that. Okay, you have a design document, you should inspect that. Okay, you have some data configurations, some test cases, you should inspect your test cases as well. Okay, so inspections are something which is done in a static manner, right? You don't need to run anything. So that can be done on any particular output which comes during your software development phases. Okay, so inspections are really helpful because they allow you to discover program errors in other phases of your life cycle, software development life cycle. Okay, so that's important because if you remember, we have mentioned this quite a few times that the later in your software development life cycle you discover your errors, the costlier it is to recover from those errors. Now the very definition of testing says, software testing says that it's dynamic analysis. So it says that I will discover errors by running the software. So when can you run your software? Only when you have a source code, right? That means after implementation. So that means so you have done your requirement specification is there. From that you got your designing, your design documents are there, your architecture documents are created. You do your source code, and only after that you can start testing and so identifying your defects. So it's too late, right? So inspections will help you to discover those errors at the earlier phases as well and recover from those errors with much lesser cost. That's the importance of software inspections. Okay, so when to use inspections and testing, this is the key question, right? So when should I go ahead with inspections and when should I go ahead with testing? The idea is it's not they are conflicting approaches. Okay, so they are complementary to each other, so you have to use a combination of both. Okay, you cannot say that I will only go ahead with inspections or I will only go ahead with software testing. Okay, you cannot say that. So it should be used during the V&V process, the V&V model that we looked at. And what inspections can do is that they can conform your code or your design with some previous specification. Okay, so if you have your requirement specification, then it can an inspection can check whether your designs are conforming to your requirement specification. If you have your design documents and you go ahead with your code, you can check whether your code is conforming to the design documents. So those kind of things can be done. But what you cannot do is you cannot do validation. So you cannot check whether you are actually satisfying the customer's real requirements, what the customer actually needs. That kind of validation cannot be done using inspections. You have to do testing for that. Okay. Also, inspections cannot do is that they cannot check non-functional quality attributes. So if you're trying to check your performance, your load handling capabilities, your system downtime, the ease of use of your system, those kind of things, you have to run the software to see it. So if you want to know when does my server break down, so how many requests, simultaneous end user requests can the server handle, and beyond which value will the server start dropping customer requests. So unless and until I run my code on the server, I'll never get to know that. Inspections will never allow me give me that kind of data or analysis, right? Similarly, if I'm talking of usability, so how easy is my software to use, that can never be judged by doing an inspection of the source code. That can only be done by running your software and giving it to the end user to use it. Only when they use it can you test your usability. So these kind of non-functional characteristics can only be tested when you deploy your software on in the operations environment, and your end users or your customer client starts using it. So you have to run your software, or you have to run your source code for doing this kind of testing. Okay.